everyone, my name is Brett and welcome to our channel Totally Spines. In today's video, I am going to be doing an unhauling. This is the first on the channel, so hopefully I do it justice. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, I don't know how many books I have here, but I'll count them and put the final number on the screen. But, alright, let me start with the first book that I am triggered by. Okay, let me just give you a brief story. Alright, I was in high school and I used to love going to the library all the time. And when I was in the library, I just was randomly picking up books, and I happened to pick up this one book, and I opened the page to a certain page, and what it was describing, for some odd reason, it disturbed me, and I put it back on the shelf. And there was, I flipped another page, and there was a certain word in there. It was a name, and it was, to me, it was an interesting name. So I kind of excommunicated it out of my head. Like, it was just disturbing. I didn't read dark books back then, so like something like this did, did disturb me. So it's crazy how now I can read dark romances and stuff like that, like it's no big deal. But back then I did not indulge in that kind of thing. So when I was looking for different books on book outlet and whatever, I happened to pick this book because it sounded interesting. But then I started reading a little bit of it, and I'm like, why does this sound familiar? And then I flipped through a couple pages and I saw the name, and I'm like, oh my god, it's the book that I swear that I was never going to read. How in the world, how did, I don't even know what the freak I'm doing. Like, how in the world did I manage to pick up something that I swear I wanted to? I don't even remember the name. And somehow my mind decided to pick this book. What kind of messed up? Anywho, I said, like, no, there's no freaking way I'm reading this book. It will get out of my house now. And that is Shattering Glass by Gail Gills. I will not be reading this. Okay, so yes, move right along. Next up is Cupid's Match by Lauren Palferman. This won a Waddy Award. It is a Wattpad book. And I will give it that it's easy to read. I got through this book pretty quickly. However, something about it was weird to me. One, I didn't like that everybody in this Cupid service, dating matchmaking service, all their names started with C. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it kind of irritated me. And second, it feels like there's a love triangle here, but not really. It was really weird. And then apparently there's 2 other books in the series, and things get even more complicated. And I'm like, no, ma'am, I'm not putting myself into that predicament. So yeah, Cupid's Match. Yeah, we're gonna get this out of here. Next up is Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. So a group of people go to this island that, has been said to have a mysterious history of shipwrecks, cannibalism, and rumors of murder. So this book kind of irritated me in certain aspects. Like, I felt like certain behaviors the people had did not make sense. But yeah, it's trying to give you a dupe of Agatha Christie. I think it's supposed to resemble Then There Were None, where a bunch of people go on an island and then basically all of them die for mysterious reasons. So it's kind of like that. I'm saying it like I know what And Then There Were None about, but I'm thinking it's based upon that. But nonetheless, I didn't like it. I figured there's no need for me to keep it. Next up is Siri, Who Am I by Sam Cheetah. It was definitely an interesting story. But Mia, I don't know. I liked her, but I didn't like her enough. Like, I mean, there was like one part that I did think was funny when she was trying to choose between JP, her actual boyfriend, and Max, who was the house sitter to her boyfriend. And everything that happens in this book is about a week and a couple of days. So when she finds out like how she ended up in the hospital with amnesia and all that, I feel like it was a cop out for some reason. And I don't know, the development of Mia and Max's, that's his name, right? Yeah, Max's relationship, I just felt like it wasn't enough. And again, it's a week, so I don't know. I wish if there was more time in the book, maybe I'd like it a little bit more, but I didn't, so might as well not keep it. Next up is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. I'm not going to dwell too much on it. I did like certain quotes that were in this book. However, if this guy did what he did, there's no free, I don't care what he did afterwards to make it up to me. You can never make this up to me. So therefore, it's not going to be in my house. That was a bit much, but still. Next up is Layover Land by Gabby Nolan. This was a good book, in a sense. It's teen fiction. However, I mean, for what it is, like, it was very interesting. Beatrice Fox. God, I'm thinking about how I felt afterwards. I was on a book slump after this book, and Beatrice, she dies in a car accident, and you know, she's in the in-between. The in-between is an airport, and it's so interesting. Beatrice is not able to move on because she's assigned to work with 1,000 odd souls or something before she's able to move on. And she has up to 30 days to work one soul at a time. So she could easily be there for over 10 years. Yeah, and one of the first people she has to help out is the person who ended up killing her in the accident. And when you read more about the guy, Caleb, he's not as bad as Beatrice thinks he is. And she starts to like him a little bit, but she's still like, she still feels kind of conflicted. And also her little sister, Emmy, she gets into a fight with her sister before her death. So that's something that I felt like I didn't like, is that there was no closure there. And usually a lot of things in life do not get closure. And that's something we have to contend with. But I think I would have liked if there was like a POV where we saw the aftermath of B's, you know, death and how her sister took it, because how they ended things, basically Emily said that she never wanted to see her again, and B dies that same day. And I'm just thinking like that is really rough. That's really rough. So anyway, yeah, not keeping it. Next up is You Must Not Miss by Katrina Lino. It is a beautiful book. I will give it that. However, I DNF'd it around right here. Can you see it? I put a yellow tab, so you probably can't see it. But I tapped it where he stopped. It was like 165. It was giving me like a cross between Speak, like the movie that you see Kristen Stewart in, like the early years when she started acting. That poem that As Told by Ginger, if you ever seen that show, Ginger writes a poem and everybody is very concerned about her because the poem is indicating that the person is depressed. And Ginger's like she's saying like, I'm not depressed. It's just a poem. And I don't know, like the world that the woman is in, I felt like it kind of contended with this world for Magpie. So that's her name, is Magpie. And like her world, her actual real world is not in a great place. Her sister left. Her father cheated on her mother turned into an alcoholic, and Magpie is drinking as well. And not just because of that, but also because of what happened to her at a party. And they don't outright say it, at least to the point that I was at. And it's just her trying to cope with all that. And the fact that she lost her best friend in the midst of all it. And it's just, I didn't feel comfortable reading the rest of it. So next up is The Stand-In by Lily Chu. I felt it was really average to me. I did like Gracie, but I felt like as far as the stand-in, I felt like a lot more could have happened, and it didn't. It felt like you were stuck in a hotel room for the whole weekend because you got stomach flu. It felt, that sounds really bad to describe, but that's how I can actually depict what I felt. As far, it's making it sound like it's a bad book. It's not. It's just, I wish there was more. And then I guess to give a little shock value, there was like a twist in there. But it was okay. Next up is 14 Ways to Die by Vincent Ralph. The main character, Jess, her mother was murdered by someone that they nicknamed Magpie Man. He killed, like, he was one of the first her mom was one of the first victims for the Magpie Man. And I think he killed 13 people in total. She's trying to get onto this internet reality show, and her premise is to find the killer for her to, get popular. So there's that. I guess I'll just get right into it because I don't know. I guess I didn't like it as much. Next is Don't Let in the Cold by Keely Parak. I've talked about this in a video, I think. I don't know. I think it was closely resembling real life, and I did not appreciate it, so that's why I didn't want to keep the book. And that's all I'm going to say on it. I feel like I will go on a tangent, and you still don't understand what I'm saying. Next up is The Game by Lindsay Miller. It's not long. It's like 200 pages. And what I did appreciate about this book is that the author used pronouns for someone who is non-binary. But I will say it was a little confusing because the author wrote it in third person. So when they were talking about, I forgot the person's name, but they were talking about this person, and then they switch over where they were talking about this person and Leah, I believe. Leah and her friend. And I was confused if they were still talking about Leah's friend, but it tripped me up a few times. So that kind of was annoying. I don't know. That's just my personal preference, but whatever. And also another thing that I mean, this is personal to me, but one of the people that died, his death was very gruesome compared to everybody else. I felt like the killer didn't even need to do all that. Like, I mean, the person, he was already dying. You didn't have to do all that. But yeah, I don't personally want to keep it. It is what it is. Next up is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. I feel like I'm too dumb to keep this book. Like, he's referring to a bunch of authors and other influential people that I have no clue about. Like, I mean, I could expand my head, but people think you're book smart, but at the same time you're stupid. So that's what I felt like with that. Like, I know basically what the book is, but at the same time I feel like it's going out of its way of making it seem like some literal fiction extravaganza type situation. But anyway, next up is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. One word: Ethan. I don't know how some people consider him a book boyfriend, but I'm sorry. If you're trying to gaslight me into not telling my sister what's going on in her love life, you're not getting a second chance with me. Like, how is it that he had a crush on Olive for years, and then he was talking to her like she's some sort of crazy person? Like, I don't understand it. And I'm just like, no. I don't care. No. Next up is Watch the Girls by Jennifer Wolfe. I got this at the Dollar Tree. So it was $1, before it turned into $1.25. But anyway, I really don't want to talk about this book. I mean, it was interesting to what she was doing. This is a thriller, but some aspects was a little weird, And I did like certain parts, you know, the conclusion, the climax, and whatever. But I don't like the part where you find out. You know what? That's kind of a spoiler. That is a spoiler, so I'm not going to say it. But based upon that spoiler, I did not like it. If you read the book, maybe we can discuss it, but I did not like it. I did not like that part. Next up is Girl Stolen by April Henry. I like April Henry's other books, but this one I particularly did not like for some reason. I think I didn't like it because it ended kind of weird, and I didn't know that this book had another one. Had a sequel to this one. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm not going to read that sequel because I read the blurb for it and I'm like, girl, you got yourself kidnapped again? Like, no, I'm not doing that. It felt incomplete to me. So I didn't want to go through all that. Next up is Blackout by Kay Monroe. It's another Wattpad book. So Allie, she wakes up from a terrible car accident and she has amnesia. And the reason why I didn't like this book is that I felt like what was going on, I felt like too many people were obsessed with her. And I'm like, why? Like, it's like, that's why I didn't want to keep it. It's like, they were doing too much for what was going on. Like, why are you obsessed with her? Next up is Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart. I'm just going to be cut and dry with this. Just read the last chapter of the book and you'll know what's going on. That's all I'm going to say. Like, and I just like, I kind of was not in for it. So I literally read the last chapter and I figured out what happened. So yeah, there's that. Next is The Never King by Nikki St. Crow. I technically DNF'd this book. It's very short. Which is such a shame because this was on Kindle Unlimited. I just needed to purchase another book. Anyway, I guess I was not in the mood for it, really. I was not in the mood for it, so I just DNF'd it. Next is The Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood. I know a lot of people love this book, but honestly, it was very basic and it was situational weirdness that I didn't care for. I know. Some people will fight me on this, but just gonna. Next up is Fear Street Secret Admirer by R.L. Stine. I love R.L. Stine. I will say this, but I feel like there's no need for me to keep this one because it was weird. Not weird in the bad way, but weird to the way I feel like there's still something going on and it's incomplete in that way. It's very short, so you can get through it in one sitting, but The Secret Admirer was... And then also this book was written in the 90s, I think, so it's very apparent that it's in the 90s, so there's that as well. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't think it would. Next is The Worst Best Man by Mia Souza. This is like a 3.25 to me. I feel like, what's her name, Lena, I felt like the reason why she was acting towards, what's his name, Max. What is with these regulars named Max? Anyway, I felt like her attitude towards him, I understand why she's upset with him, but nonetheless, the things that she ended up doing were just childish compared to how she presents herself in other aspects of her life. I felt like it was really childish, and I'm not in the mood to keep that. Nearly there. Next up is Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson. This was a good book. I will say that. I guess the reason why I wouldn't want to keep it is because it has that He-Man Women Haters Club cult kind of thing. And I'm I'm not 100% into all of that, so I don't know. It was interesting, I will say, but it was kind of, there was like one part that I just thought was just sad. Like, it doesn't, like, why? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Move on! Anywho, next up is Fright Night by Maureen Staffas. Now, this was interesting in the synopsis of 3 friends going to a Fright Night type of event. You know, like Halloween Horror Nights kind of thing, but in the woods. However, I think what overshadowed that part was one of the friends having a past and that coming up. And I felt like that, based on what she said at the end of the book, I feel like that should have been highlighted more compared to the Fright Night thing. I felt like based on what this was saying, I wanted this to be deep with the Fright Night stuff. Like prom night, it's clear they were going to prom night, but the main thing was the teacher being obsessed with the student and stuff, and he chasing after her all night during prom. Even though that's not like someone's idea of a great thriller or whatever, I still enjoyed what it was. I watched it in movies, I watched it, you know, in streaming services. I love that movie for what it is. But this, I felt like we barely were in the whole Fright Night situation. So I feel like we're going back constantly to the past rather than the present. Probably that doesn't make any sense, whatever. The last one is The Girl Who Knew Too Much by Tiffany Brooks. Now, when I first started reading this book, the main character, Riley, I did not like this. I did not like her at all. Thankfully, at the end of the book, I did like her more. But at the beginning, it was like a group of teens going on to a deserted island to find treasure and stuff like that. It's Survivor, but with teenagers, basically. And then weird things start to happen on the island. And, you know, they're trying to figure it out while trying to find treasure and stuff. So it was very interesting in that regard. But it's not something I want to keep, because it's not something I want to grab ever again. Nonetheless, though, I don't want to keep it. So yeah, those were the books I'm unhauling. Yeah, that does it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed. Tell me if you read any of these books I mentioned and if you like them or not. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.